Hi there everyone, and welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. You are looking at one of the finest machines ever made and one of the last of the all-metal machines ever made, one of the last heirloom quality machines ever made, and that is a Sears Kenmore 158.17572 model. This is a flatbed machine circa early 1970s. I would date this one somewhere between 1972 and 74 or so. And it was made in Japan, and I can tell by some of the paint loss right here, and some here, it got some use, but it is not worn out. It is still ready for. I consider this heirloom. More generations will use this machine if it's cared for. What I wanted to make a video about today, however, is this: when you inspect a sewing machine, you may find that something functions and you assume it's okay, it must not be broken. You can do this depending when you're trying to buy a machine and you're not sure about it, and someone has it for sale. You try to inspect as much as you can. Sometimes it's porch pickup, they call it, and you can't even plug it in. The less testing you're able to do, from my perspective, the less you should pay. There are exceptions to this. Some of the rare Berninas I had, I was willing to take a chance on, depending on the price. Now, why am I specifically talking about this machine? When you buy a machine and someone tells you it's in good shape, they probably, at least in my experience, more often than not, they had the best of intentions. In fact, I don't believe that my client, this is not a machine I rescued, it's one of my repeat clients who had it. They found it, they bought it, and they wanted me to go through the machine. And so I did. And I actually created videos on this machine specifically because it had some stitch length control issues. It had parts that were stuck. Now, this part here was not working. And I actually went in, and before I did anything else on the machine, I actually went in to see if we could in fact, restore and repair that function, because if we couldn't, then the owner had to decide, okay, how many hours do I want to invest in having you go through the machine, because these machines are rarely broken permanently, but it can happen. So once that was decided, then of course I always go through the entire machine. I do a full overhaul, conservation, restoration. It is not just cleaning and oiling. I literally go into all the different parts of the machine because it has probably never had that maintenance. And in this, if you use a car metaphor, think of the 100,000 mile tune. It really is time for full maintenance. Now, when you see something not working, that tells you, okay, I need to address that. But when something works, does that mean it's good to go and use? Does that mean it's not broken? I am going to direct your attention to that. That is the foot pedal. This foot speed controller. You can see it's the original. It's got Sears on it. And it is a carbon pile style. This is a foot controller that works in a similar way that many of the vintage Singer foot pedals, they look different, but they have a similar. I've shown carbon pile. You can see my foot pedal video for that information, what a carbon pile is. But that's not the question we have. So the owner had plugged this in and used it. Seemed to be good. When I got the machine, I do a full overhaul. You say, well, isn't that overkill? Does every machine need that? And my answer is yes. Unless you've been sewing with that machine for years and it's had regular use and you know it inside and out, it's your machine and you just want something else done, well, chances are you can probably do it yourself from watching one of my videos. Most of the people who bring me machines do not want to have to spend the time researching everything to do a full overhaul, and that's why they have me do them. But now, again with this pedal, when you get something, even if you cannot do this level of inspection when you buy it, it's not always possible. I can't always do that either, because the seller either puts it on a porch or, the seller says, hey, can I plug it in and test it? And they may say yes. And if they do, they're not gonna, you're not gonna hang out there for an hour. Most people are not gonna, they don't know you. You're a stranger. They want you, to buy it or not and be gone. Not necessarily being rude. They're just, it's again, they don't want to have people in their house for extended periods hanging out with their stuff, unless you know the person or you know of them. Okay, so I went and I was looking at this machine and I took its cord. I always like to inspect machines, and that includes the cord. So I'm inspecting the cord. Oh, the cord is nice and pliable. It's not new, and I think it is the original cord. And it still has plenty of flexibility. There's no cracking or dry rotting in the cord insulation, because the wires of a cord have, I believe they're called jackets, but it's the rubber or vinyl insulation that goes around the cord, because you have to insulate wires, obviously. And then I looked at the plug, and the plug is not cracked. It has, the new replacements on these cords they have some other metal, but these had brass because they were more expensive. They used better materials back in the day, and you see the numbers 1, 2, 3, and that has to do with which parts go to which part on the plug. There are 3 prongs that go into this. So far, looks great. So when I first got the machine, I was checking out the mechanical parts, but then I did something I like to do. If it allows me to open, move my knuckle out of your way there, you can see it. If it allows me, I will access it. Just like with machines, vintage sewing pedals normally give you access. You see this there's a bolt here. It comes off, and I inspect it. And I inspected this one. Well, often what can happen to a sewing machine pedal in its long life is it can get dropped, it can get run over. God, any and everything can happen to them. Now, sewing machine pedals are either made of steel or plastic. The plastic is usually hard. This one is. Inside these pedals, virtually all of the vintage pedals have a housing, if they're not electronic. Remember, electronics start to show up in the 60s, but most pedals from the heirloom period that I like to restore machines for have either a rheostat designed pedal, which has an arm that sweeps across a series of coiled wires, or it has a carbon pile type. And so the Singer, which this machine doesn't use it, but many of you see me do many videos on the Singer button style foot pedal. It uses carbon pile, and which is a wonderful design. But in all cases, rheostat or carbon pile, again, you can see my videos on foot pedals. Inside is a little housing that is made of porcelain. And that porcelain is there because porcelain can tolerate high heat when you're dealing with electrical current. And keep in mind that these machines, foot pedals, are electromechanical, so they will naturally get warm. And so you have porcelain. Well, I opened this pedal up because I wanted to inspect it. And there were a few dust bunnies, which I'm not, it's not unusual to see after all these years. So I took the dust bunnies out, and I cleaned the contact points on this with alcohol. And I was looking at it, and I always inspect. What does that mean? Before you go inside of a pedal, before you even open up, take a look at it. Okay? Gently, not violently, gently shake it. Do you hear a sound? You might hear a spring wiggling, but you should not hear a clunking sound. That's usually a clear sign that something is broken, and it's often the porcelain inside. But I didn't hear that, but even if you don't, the shake test is not enough. You got to go in and see what's what. So I opened it up, and I did the things I just described to you, but then look at the outside, right? Does the spring action work? Yep, it's an old spring, but it's still ready to go. But look closely. If you do not do this in low lighting. Now I'm going to do this, but notice, you guys see? Look very closely. What's wrong with this picture? Literally, this picture in the video. Oh yeah, right there. There is a crack. Goes from here to here. And then you can see If I pull this in closely, you'll see it. It's right here as well. Now, if this were an electronic pedal, and it was just the plastic that had been cracked, I'm not sure that I would continue to use it. But in this case, absolutely not. Now, why is that? The pedal functions. In fact, I've used it to do test stitching with it early on, and it worked. But even though the porcelain and all the mechanicals inside this pedal are working beautifully, this crack means that the pedal housing, which is plastic, that is insulating you from any kind of electrical current or contact. Now, you might say, well, that's being overly cautious. Maybe not. In fact, I'm sure it's not, and here's why. They make adhesives that will, you can put a little pressure on and you can glue the plastic. Some of those adhesives work well for plastics in general, but they will fail almost always because of the heat. Remember, this pedal is going to get warm, nice and not super, super hot. It should never get that, but it's going to get warm. And when you have heat cycles of warm, cool, there's flexing. In my experience, very few adhesives or glues will tolerate that, and they will fail, and the plastic will come apart. And it won't make a grand announcement of that either. It'll just happen, and you'll be sewing along. Is that taking too much care? Some would say that, but I just don't think the risk is worth it. It's a foot pedal. It can be replaced, okay? And in fact, this one was. And you can do one of two things. You can disassemble this pedal when it's unplugged, obviously, and then take off the cord. The cord is attached with bolts inside, and you can remove the cord and reuse the cord and get another pedal. Or if you want to make things simpler, you can get another cord and pedal. And so this pedal is not the same. In fact, this pedal is a rheostat, and it is attached to the same cord, not the actual exact same cord, but a similar cord that fits this Kenmore with the same 3 prongs. Now, this particular pedal has been tested, and it works beautifully. So, what else is there to say? What else could we have done? You can use a vintage pedal, or you got to make sure the vintage pedal's in good shape, obviously. And then you have the option of, if you want to spend a little more, you can get a generic electronic pedal, okay? And you have to get one, though, where you can actually connect the wires, because some of them are soldered, and I don't recommend dealing with modern soldering. That presents a whole other level of issues. Modern solder is not as easy to work with as the old stuff. And it's safer because it doesn't have nearly as much lead in it. But in this situation, this pedal is going to work beautifully, and it is the pedal that I used when I made the video showcasing that this machine is now ready for its owner to pick up and to enjoy using. The owner has a set of cams. This particular machine took cams. So, what's the main lesson from this video? Even when something appears okay, it's looking okay, it runs okay, it's not making weird sounds, the power flow on this pedal, the original pedal, even though the power flow was good, and you couldn't tell any issues from how much power it was giving to the machine, you really need to look. Chances are, I'm pretty darn sure, at some point in its life, that's a long time ago, folks, more than a half century, this pedal got dropped. And in fact, sometimes a pedal gets dropped and people don't even realize it. This pedal could have fallen onto a rug, and you might think, well, a rug would save it. Not necessarily. Or it may have gone, splat, and somebody said, picked it up, it's fine, it's running, okay. People don't always look closely. So again, when you get a machine, especially when it's new to you, right, look at it closely. Don't be afraid to inspect it. And if anything seems amiss, err on the side of caution. And it's a shame. You don't know how much I can't stand to toss things away. I want to save everything, but sometimes you can't. And the parts from this might be useful for a future foot pedal. I don't know, but my recommendation to the owner was, let's just replace the pedal. We can replace it with another vintage pedal. It doesn't have to say Sears on it, but it just needs to be compatible, or we can get you a new electronic pedal. And the owner said, well, let's go with the vintage. It was a little less. And that is that. So remember, there's more to vintage sewing machines than first meets the eye. I hope this was helpful, and maybe it will inspire some of you, especially if you have a new to you machine, to do a little inspecting yourself. Especially, beginning just a cursory glance on the outside. Make it more than cursory. Give it a thorough glance. Check it out. If it makes any weird sound when it is being run, if you hear a crackling sound, that means some of the discs in a carbon disc style have been damaged. Do not use it. If you hear anything rattling around inside, chances are your porcelain's broken. This is not a deal breaker for a machine. If I saw a machine for sale and I knew that the pedal was broken, I might still buy it because I know I can get a replacement pedal. For most machines, there are exceptions to this in some of the European brands. They can be tougher to replace. But I hope that you have a new appreciation for your foot pedal, and if your foot pedal is in great shape, try really hard not to drop it. Be gentle and kind to your foot pedal, and it can last a long time. Thank you all for supporting this channel, and if you would like to support with a donation to Buy Me a Coffee, just click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, and it will take you right to my Buy Me a Coffee page. You will recognize the Singer 301, which is my logo, my branding. And any donation you can make will help me find more machines to rescue and salvage and show videos on, so that we can all learn more how to maintain and rescue machines that were designed to last truly for generations. Thank you all. We'll see you next time.